The ultimate goal of the Urban Servant Leadership Unconference, we want to be able to bring together as many pieces of the puzzle as we can so that ultimately we put together a picture that helps us see and to understand what a valuable, sustainable community needs to look like.
I'm here because my personal life mission is to help others help themselves. It's the epitome of what servant leadership is all about.
So I wanted to come to the Unconference today so that I could discuss the Healthy Indiana Plan, which is a healthcare plan that's available to folks between the ages of 19 and 64 who have incomes at less than 138% of the federal poverty level.
My name is Anita Adams. I work with Indianapolis Healthy Star. We know that there are inequalities that are happening in our community, and we work to reduce those for families.
You have to be called to be a servant leader because you know that you are going to give and you may not get anything in return, and that's okay. An urban servant leader is called to do what we do.
You should really research it. If you were not here, I urge you, I cannot say this enough, that you need to come to the next conference.
All right, what's up, everybody? This is Pastor G. You are looking at Community Conversation Part 2, really Part 3, because we just had a conversation just a minute ago with our good friend, Faith McKinney, who's one of the board members for Unite for Change. She was just on with us. We were talking about these two bills running through Washington, D.C. right now between the Democrats and Republicans, the policing bills that are gridlocked right now in D.C. So we just got finished doing that, talking about that. Of course, we had our good friend, we just had, let's see, who else we had on? Edgar. Yeah, we had Edgar on earlier today. He's a DACA recipient. His community from Mexico, his community is really dealing with a lot of the challenges that our communities, other communities of color are dealing with in terms of the rhetoric, in terms of the media hype, in terms of being fearful of the different moves of this administration. So we had him on earlier. We just got finished talking about these two bills. And so now, as y'all see, we had a really impactful. Y'all see that suave looking guy in that picture right there? He can't see what I'm looking at. That's suave guy in that picture right there. Let's go and get him on. There he is. That's the man, the myth, the legend, Brother Kai Freeman. How you doing, bro?
Hello.
You doing all right?
I am absolutely fine.
All right, so here's the real deal. Kai is the first person who has been interviewed twice on Community Conversations TV. So he gets the award. Not only does he get the award, he can't hear the applause, but I'm giving him applause right now. You get applause and everything. So a lot, man. Okay, let me just talk about Kai Freeman. Kai Freeman is the current president of the Black Student Union at Indiana University in Bloomington. He's a good friend of my daughter. She's a student there at Indiana University there in Bloomington. But also, I will say that the first time that I was introduced to Brother Kai, there was a news report that was talking about African-American men in education that I saw on television, never knowing that I would actually meet the guy or be, interview him or anything. But I saw that news report because Pastor G is a former educator. I'm a former professor from Tennessee State, Vanderbilt, and Ball State. So I have an interest in education as well. So, of course, it gravitated to me to know that there are some young men. We need more young African-American men in education, and you did speak to that. But there's a lot more that has happened even since then with regard to you in the community. So, first of all, I just need to know a little bit more about what's been going on with you since we last chatted. What's been going on?
Oh, so much has absolutely gone on. So with all of the things that are going on with Bloomington that I'm doing at the institution, whether it is we've organized a protest, which we've started an organization, Enough is Enough, which again rallies behind, with the three main things: youth development, financial relief, any way, shape, or form that we can absolutely help our community, one, and especially Black businesses that have been affected by looting, while also pouring into the leaders that are going to come tomorrow. So with that, we organized a protest in Bloomington June 5th, which we rallied over 4,000 people to come out. It was a peaceful protest. Nothing went wrong in any capacity. And it was just something that some peers and I felt like it needed to happen. On top of that, we did some things in Indianapolis where we did a Juneteenth demonstration.
Right.
We had people come out and see like what the beauty of Juneteenth is, and like to celebrate the tenacity and the resiliency that it's taking in our pursuit for freedom as African American people. So with that, there's a lot of different smaller things that we've accomplished through the Black Student Union at our institution, whether it is establishing DEI training for all of auxiliary staff, with extending that to now having conversations about how do we make building changes that are systemically racist that basically we've seen over the course of time, or in what ways that we can really shape residential policies at our institution to really get to the nitty gritty and be inclusive of these diverse populations that they rally behind for marketing. So we've done a lot of different things in a lot of smaller different areas around campus, really making that bigger. Just focusing more on, like with the Black Student Union, making it more from a social organization to more of a social, political advocacy group. And we also won, like last year, the Diversity and Inclusion Social Justice Award. So it's really cool, which I've done a lot, and I'm the youngest president that they've seen. So we've been really going with the Black Student Union.
So let me also say this for those who are watching now. I need you to share this. Now, I went on my rant earlier today, and I'll go on my rant again. None of this, the analytics of Facebook, the analytics of YouTube, the analytics of Periscope mean that we don't mind if y'all like this, but y'all got to share it. Share, so that other people can be involved in this conversation. Us having these conversations mean nothing if the community is not here. That's why we call it community conversations, okay? So we need the community involved. Now, I'm also watching the comments box. So if you have a question or a comment, you can throw that into the comments box, whether that's for, what we're doing right now, if you got a question for Kai in general. Now, let me just ask this question because, you're saying y'all are kind of shifting a little bit. Talk to me about why you feel the need to shift. I kind of understand that myself, but I need to hear from you very strategically what were those conversations like when y'all were kind of looking at what was going on and saying, y'all, we need maybe to focus a little bit over here. What's that about?
So mostly what I like to do a lot more is understand the history behind it all, and understand like the networking of people that have come even through the past Black Student Union presidents or Black students that have went through the campus. And what we were seeing is that what the students were asking for in the 80s were the same exact things that we were asking for in the 20s. So putting that together in a conversation, saying that, hey, we asked here, and here, because they can never deny history and they can never deny the facts of it all, is that this is what we asked for and this is what we still have yet to come to. Or you say as an institution that we're going to do this, but here we are and we still don't have that. So it's, again, really, I say what I've done is really reinforce the various things and the projects that they said that they were going to embark on and hold them accountable. Because a lot of times what we get with this institution is the lack thereof of transparency that we have with everything that goes on is the reason why a lot of things get swept under the rug. But I am the one person that I make a lot of people upset because I aggravate, because I do not stop at, okay, we said we're going to do it. No, it's okay. So when are we going to do this? When's the timeline this is going to happen? What's going to happen? When's going to happen? And consistently being a constant force and being persistent on these issues. And that's what's kind of shifted us to be getting more mobility as an organization and more credibility.
So let me ask this, because, one of the challenges that we have in cities in general, in a city, in a municipality, is terms, right? In other words, you expect to make a demand, and if a mayor is only going to be there for 4 years before an election cycle, then they can make promises all day long.
Yep.
But once that, let's superimpose that on education. Administration knows that how much longer you got, Kai. You only have another, what I'm saying, a couple years, and they're like, well, we'll make promises all day long, but you're not going to be. And so, in other words, if there is no consistency, right, if there's no overlap, there's no passing of the baton of those issues to the next matriculating set of students who come in as a freshman, they don't know what's going on, they ain't got themselves figured out, they ain't ran for no offices yet, they're not involved yet, so it's going to take them a couple years to get. How do you keep the cycle going so that a demand can be held, they can be held accountable over an 8-year span of time when you've got 2 or 3 different sets of students that came in. How do you do that?
So I would say it kind of goes towards my leadership style. So the goal in my leadership is to inspire those around me to lead. So what I do is, it's like with the Black Student Union, we have a freshman action team, and consistently it sets up a mentorship between like the president of the freshman action team, the president of the Black Student Union. So it's consistently me planting the seed, but also with me planting the seed, I have to have a solid foundation to go off of first. So with what we've done with the organization this year, it's going to set them up for years to come, because we're developing like strategy plans that last 2 to 3 years on what we're going to consistently be asking for. Because like you stated, consistency is the key here. Because at our institution, just like most, our problems only last for about 4 years, but consistently getting students in, cycling them through, letting them know you can be the same exact way that I'm doing right now, and I'm not the only person that's fully capable of doing this. So with our organization, a big goal of it is to give back and want to educate those around. Because I'm an education major, that's what I hold true to.
Right.
Is really planting that seed. And that's what we do within our freshman action team that we have, and also other members around the community in the other organizations that we have. Because a lot of our people from Black Student Union go off and branch in other organizations and do absolutely amazing work. But what I say is that with us at our institution is that Black Student Union can't be the only one that's fully functioning this way. So when it is that we're talking and we're engaging with the Black President's Cabinet, we're now spreading it out to different projects and saying, hey, let's collaborate here, let's collaborate there. Let's try and go and work in the residence halls where it's primarily freshmen, where they don't know anything, and network with them.
So, and you mentioned exactly what I was about to head towards, and here's why I think this is important. What you just said about the Black President's Council, you've got people who are on one organization might feed into other organizations, because, I think that's an important point, because when you leave the what I call it the incubation system of higher education. You've got a police force there, you've got governing bodies there, you've got organizations there, and all that. When you leave that environment and you come back to Indianapolis or Marion County, you're going to run into people and organizations that don't do what you're talking about, right? And part of that is because of the grant cycle. Part of that is because everybody's kind of fighting for money, and this person's trying to one up this person, this organization. So it gets very political. It gets very, So what do you feel your leadership style needs to do in order to prepare yourself as well as your constituency for post, graduation, when you actually taken everything that you've learned and you've moved into the real world?
I think it needs to really be effective mentorship. So it's not just a matter of me saying, hey, I'm just going to give you this project and this is what I've done. It's no, let me take you under my wing. Let's really go through this. Let's talk. Let's engage. Let me let you know the thought process that I'm kind of thinking when it comes to these things. And a lot of it, too, is genuineness between the two. Is building that, is transparency, and like fully being yourself through this. Is I don't feel that I would have been as successful if I wasn't presenting myself fully and all of that. And one, supporting everyone that's around me, and not just supporting them in this sense, but supporting them in the aspect of in their personal lives, in their academic lives, but still letting them know there's a standard that we must work to. And again, I'm not going to drop that any lower, because again, we're having a bad day. We got to keep this pushing. We got to keep this going, and consistently motivating them. Like, that's what I feel is the best way to do that. And one is just to engage with them. Like, that's what it is. The heart of a lot of things that happen within corporate things or corporate jobs is relationship building. That is how you truly, I feel like, keep that going even when you're gone, because people will forget your name, they'll forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And again, when you set up that relationship dynamic that you have there, they're going to consistently be, I want to work to that standard. I want people to work past my standard. And that's what I absolutely try and mentor them to do, is that, hey, I did this, but you can do so much more. Right.
So let me ask you this. For my assumption is, this is an assumption. You correct me if I'm wrong. When you came into the leadership position of the organization, I was the vice president of the Black Student Association at Ball State. We're talking about two PWIs, right? Predominantly white institutions. and I was also at Tennessee State, which is a predominantly black institution, and so there was totally different dynamics, right? Totally different dynamics when you're at a PWI. Let me ask you this initially, and I get to another question. Was the organization, did it have the capacity to support and to sustain the kind of work that you're talking about right now? Or did you have to kind of open up the hood and start getting to work, giving a fine tuning to the organization? Did you have to give it a tune up, put new spark plugs in it? Did you have to reorganize and rework some things? Because what I hear you saying is not traditionally the way a student-led organization looks from top to bottom. Did you have to do some re-engineering, and what did that look like?
Yes, we absolutely did have to do some re-engineering for the Black Student Union. We had a theme for last year, and it was the rebirth. Because a lot of times in our Black Student Union, it was looked at as a social organization. We get together, we talk about the issues, we have a few events, we laugh and joke, and that's what it is. But again, to me, it's like you guys have this platform of the Black Student Union, a premier Black organization that's supposed to reflect the greater needs of the Black population to the Bloomington population. So in no way, shape, or form do I think that this organization has bounds or limits, so I don't act as such. So from the various things that we did with going to the provost, while that's not something that's afforded to our organization like others where they meet monthly, one, I sought out and I walked in the office and said, hey, my name is blah, 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 blah. We need to get this going. We need to do this. We need to do that. And that all started genuinely by somebody genuinely believing in me. But that's also my drive and my passion that, again, I care so much about the Black students here is that, like, one, I'm not going to not give them an answer. I'm not going to allow you to not do something of this capacity. So when we talk about reworking it, we needed a structure and we didn't have much of a platform to build off of. So we had to figure out what it is that now we have a historian. We need to make sure that we're keeping up with the history of the things and the projects that we're working on. Because again, when we have those people that are coming in after us, they're not going to know what we did. And that was the hardest part for us, is that we did not have a foundation. We did not know what past presidents had worked on. We did not know past events that they had done or anything like that. But this year, after that 1 year of leadership, the organization will never run the same, because now we have a historian. We're keeping up with documents. We have statements. We have people that are in our educational chairs. We have political action chairs. Like, we have all of these various areas to where now students can get engaged, and one, we can make sure that we're advocating in that space. So establishing a lot of things.
So you had a lot of work to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Now having said that, you basically alluded to my next question, which had to do with, again, when you're at a PWI as opposed to a historically HBCU, at a PWI, it's kind of like we all we got.
Yeah.
Okay. You're in an environment where it is about as close to the real world as you're going to get. Right? At historically Black college university, your professors like me typically take on the persona of an uncle or a father figure or whatever. And so, but on your campus, your organization ends up being a lot because that's all you got. Right?
Yeah.
So it becomes a respite. It becomes your downtime. It becomes, so here's my question. When you are dealing in a space where if all y'all did was be social, that would be enough. On a campus where, you go to class and you just need a place to let your hair down, right? And so what the Black, what do y'all call it? Is the Black Student Association?
Black Student Union.
Black Student Union. So people may seek out the Black Student Union just to exhale. You follow? And that's all that they want. Other people are looking at the Black Student Association as, oh, this is where I need to go to find out how to connect with more African Americans, because I'm in a major where I'm the only Black in the entire, in my entire major. So I need a place to connect. So some people look at it for that. But then you're talking about kind of taking it to a whole nother level. What is it like to sort of oversee an organization that is so many different things to so many different people? Come on.
To be completely honest, it surprises me and it baffles me every single day. is that, not just being a social organization, but letting, the organization know, hey, we can be this, 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 and this also at the same time. So again, we want to be the pinnacle of resources for Black students. So that is, if you need to get to this administrator, this is who you go to, this is who you contact. If you want to get here, we know this person in a Black faculty, staff, and caucus. So kind of extending it beyond just being a social, because that's something we need to as an administration for BSU. We love the social events because we love to let our hair down and really just authentically be ourselves. But we do not let our problems exist as conversations because we put action behind it. And that's the addition that I feel that I added this year, is that, okay, we hear that the students are saying this, 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 and this. Let's put something behind this. Let's go have a meeting with the administration and give them more than just our anecdotal experiences. And let's give them, this is what the students are absolutely saying that they need. This is what they're facing, and this is what we want to see change. So again, I think having the social provides a really good way for us to de-stress, and another way for us to use it as like evidence as to why we need the things that we do, because we have to prove why we need the things that we need. When other student organizations, they get to thrive without what they care about is fundamentally different than what we're focusing on in the Black Student Union. Some people are focusing on having parties on Thursdays, and we're focusing about not being discriminated against on campus. So it's different, but that provides that type of look for us to connect on that level, because we're all facing these different microaggressions, implicit biases, and things like that. So I say having the social and then now having the actual like advocacy political to it, we're doing what the organization is founded in. Because for us as Black students, activism is not a choice, it's a way of life. At this institution, because trying to thrive at the inception of this system when it was systemically built racist. So it's like trying to find ways to be included, which again, I have my problems with being included in conversations, but fundamentally fixing the system to where we're here. It's equity, it's equitable across all statures, because at our institution, they use diversity as a synonym for social justice, and they're two completely different things. And that's what our organization sheds lights on, uplifts, lets you know the nitty gritty, and doesn't want to sugarcoat it in any capacity. So that's, I think, having that social and political kind of do. And it's amazing to see how it transforms from just a mass meeting talking about microaggressions, diary of a mad Black student, to now we're actually seeing policy changes, shifts, and things like that. That is the beautiful part of it all.
Now, okay, now let's transition this conversation, and we're going to use your vernacular, action. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now this is an important part of the conversation, because from what you're telling me, the way I translate that is that you all at the Black Student Union are helping students or advocating in such a way that will help students to understand that when you face systemic issues, policies, right? When you, institutional policies, when you see pictures, paintings on buildings that are historically racist and whatnot, when you have been dealt with unjustly by an administrator or whatever, you're telling me that your organization is trying its best to help those individuals approach the institution in order to exact change in that space, so that whoever comes behind me does not have to run into that same issue. That's advocacy and that's action. I ain't mad at that, and I thank you for that. Right, because my son is on his way to IU too, and I need him to be involved in these conversations. But when we transition from the incubator of the college experience, and we move into, I'm not saying that what y'all dealing with at IU ain't the real world, okay? Because for you all it is. But when you translate into where you dealing with Congressman so-and-so and Senator such and such and councilperson so-and-so and councilperson such and such, all of a sudden that same injustice, that same racial tension, that same systemic racism, that same stuff that you run into, y'all just been taught that this is what you do. How do you prepare your students to deal with those concerns when they graduate from where they are, the incubation piece, to the real world when you need action. And I'm gonna get specific in a minute, and you know where I'm about to go with action. But how do you all do it to prepare people to say, okay, this is where we are now, but when you get out there, it takes your responsibility to advocate and for action to another level. How do y'all prepare them?
So I think what we really do is we focus on, one, people of our age bracket are really creative. So we want you to bring those creative strategies to looking at the different policies that they have there and finding ways around it, because there's always a loophole. And then also, we also educate them on the aspect of history. History does not tell you any way, shape, or form what you can and cannot do. It lets you know that here is a problem that we face, here's how we got around it. So looking at that as a formula to, here it is that this is a similar law. This is what they did here. This is what we're seeing manifest itself here. So now let's see if we can figure out something that's going to be progressive enough to match our society, but also hit the formula that they have. So history kind of gives us the context that we need to kind of deal with these issues and these problems. And another thing we explain to them is networking. Networking is absolutely crucial, I feel like, at our stage in life, because we're going off into the real world and not just existing within IU. So with some of the things, some of our students, like within Black Student Union, is that they go on to really talking to state officials or either local officials that we have within the Bloomington Council about looking at the arbitration laws that we have for police officers for reform to happen of that caliber, or one, being on these various councils around the city that they have. So what we say is that we explain that the problems that exist now are going to exist a little bit longer, but we want to make sure that we are the aggravate to the system that they have to fundamentally embarrass them, because once you embarrass somebody about something, then it's going to be like, okay, maybe we need to start changing it. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that's what it is that we kind of go off of. It's just like, be creative, look at the history behind it, do your research. Because a lot of times when you come saying, hey, this policy is unjust, you come with superficial knowledge. But why is it unjust? So for instance, I'll give you an example. At our institution, we have a hall named after Jordan Hall, which again was a eugenicist and incredibly racist. But that is not alone the reason why his name needs to be taken off. The reason that it needs to be taken off is because of the simple fact his research is centered in white supremacy. That's the deeper issue that we're facing here, and that's what we're challenging students to look at. Go beyond the superficial and really get to the meat of what it is of why these things are wrong, which is going to take some time, which is going to take some studying, which is going to take some research. So again, time is what we preach.
Gotcha. Now, I told you I was going to go deeper in this question, but I tried to prepare you for it. So
I know.
Okay, so here's the deal, and we got a question that somebody has dropped into the chat, and I'll get to that question after I ask you this. Okay, your minor is law and public policy.
Yes, it is.
All right, so I feel like I can go here because when we talk about action, all right, and you talked about history. Let's look at the history of uprisings in our community. Let's go back before the Watts riot. Let's go back before the 1992 riot in D.C., $1 billion worth of destruction out there after the Rodney King beating and the Rodney King verdict, which not one police officer was ever charged with anything. Again, we go back to Watts in the late 1960s. Then we go back to D-Day, Double D-Day in the early 60s when students left their schools and went down into the park and were hosed down, and they had dogs and stuff to hit them. Let's go to the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Let's go there into history and let's understand what action or reaction came from the action. The Civil Rights Bill of 1964. Right?
Okay.
Fast forward, 2020.
Okay.
George Floyd, Eric Garner, Philandro, Sean Reed, Breonna Taylor. All right, and then Floyd. Streets are filled with protests.
Absolutely.
Now, I would argue that these protests that we have seen have dwarfed what we saw in the early 60s, the late 60s, 92, and any time since then. Dwarfed them. Now we could talk about COVID and reasons why, but that's irrelevant to the point that injustice was put on full display, and people came out across genders, across race, across ethnicities, across LGBTQ, across religion. They came out. History says that after agitation, we get legislation. Right now in Washington, D.C., there are 2 bills that are being floated through our Congress or Senate or whatever the heck it is. 2 bills that are floating through, reform bills. The word on the street is that it is possible that our legislators can leave Washington, D.C. after doing nothing. What do you and your peers creatively plan to do to ensure that these marches were not for nothing?
So for more of our peers like that we look at more, while that's a like big like federal thing that we're looking at, we try and make sure that we let them know that there's more impacts and things that you can do locally and statewide, because a lot of the things that affect us in the state of Indiana are state and local policies. So when it is that we're talking about trying to find ways of reforming it to making it more conducive to populations of color, we're talking about now you're seeing more youth develop, like in conversations with Mayor Joe Hogsett or the various senators around the state about talking about these various things. Because while we might not be able to get it on a federal level holistically for the United States, we can get it on the state level. So one, putting the press on those type of state officials or city officials that we have here. I've been in conversations with the mayor about ways that we can look at police reform to where we're looking at the arbitration laws, like I say, that really go into it about holding police accountable for the things that they have. One, even talking about looking at the privacy exemptions that police have within your own local state, that it is to where like Indiana has a limited view to where you only see police disciplinary records when it is something that happens that's a termination, a suspension, or anything like that, but all of the other things are kept internal and kind of private for it. So trying to push more ways for us to have more public transparency, or one, really diving through what it is that you can do in your local state. That's what our giant push is that on a federal level, there's only so much that we can do here. But again, it takes time too, while also looking at our state officials that are being elected, voting, because that's the big thing now that you're seeing that people of our age are not actually doing. So getting people registered to vote, making sure they're going to the polls, and making sure they're actually knowing knowledge about these various candidates. And again, so some of those things that they have within that bill about the community policing model are things that we're trying to really push more on the state level here in Indiana.
So what is it that we can do as community advocates, as elders, as mentors, and you may know that, like Faith is chairing our Urban Servant Leadership Unconference, right? She's pulled a team of people together to help pull that piece together. So we're trying, at least from our perspective, trying to say, okay, we're bringing people like Kai on, we're bringing people like, I can't remember the other young lady, but we're bringing young people on a regular basis to say, hey, what can we do to support the work that you all are doing to make sure that when you start talking about impacting your state, your state and local officials, impacting state and local regulations and policies and things that are running through your city, county councils, what is it that we can do to support the work that you're doing? And here's what I'm gonna ask: we're gonna remove this generational arrogance. This is not me, just trying to be this old dude over here saying, well, I know everything, and you need to kiss the ring and all that. But then I'm also saying, from a young person, remove the generational arrogance. We don't need nothing from y'all. Y'all ain't gave us nothing. No, come on, let's talk and let's understand what it is that we need to be able to do to support the work that you are currently doing and ultimately will do as you move beyond your matriculation into the world post graduation. What can we do?
I think the best way that it is in any way, shape, or form is like, when I say the importance of mentorship at a time like this is absolutely crucial. So I wouldn't have the fundamental knowledge or be able to go into these different type of meetings without the engagement that I've had from mentors all over the place, from various judges, lawyers, to people who are CEOs of companies and mentor programs that we have that are pouring into these students. Is that if you see that there's a fire, a fire that they want to do something, give them everything that they need and consistently support them through that process of going to it. As like, that's my biggest thing that I think would help a lot of people as well. And like, one, we have to acknowledge that the issues that we're fighting against, while they will absolutely impact all of us, they're going to impact the younger generation, the older generation, which is kind of going out. We need to get that valuable knowledge and information that they have. They've lived through it. They know some of the things that have happened. And that's why I preach so much about history. We need to understand the history of it all. And I'm only 20 years old. Let me just throw that out there. Only 20. I only know so much. I'm going to need to engage with somebody that's been through it a little bit more so I can kind of understand what it is that we're facing here and how, again, this problem has transcended into a new issue, but with the same foundation coming from that like place before. So I think what it is just like engagement, like these type of conversations that are meaningful, because again, youth need to see more people, their age bracket, that are identities that reflect theirs, doing the work.
Right.
Because we already know that people who are older than us have done the work, they've been doing it, but they need to learn how to pass the torch and plant the seed. So right now is what I say, this is the gardening time right now. You plant your seeds and you water them. And that's what we need to see happening to this younger generation, is not consistently being stifled. Or again, like you said, that generational arrogance is that, I'm so much older, I can do so much this. Because if you look at this movement and you look at what's really going on, you're seeing who are really coining it with the protests and the organizers and things like that. Even within the city of Indianapolis, the Organization of Black Women in Charge are 7 Black women who are in college and in high school that have been able to talk to state officials. They have board meetings and things like that, or even just looking at what we're doing down in Bloomington as college students. But again, not even the students that we would really say, we're just people that absolutely care about the injustices that are going on and uplifting those, because you're seeing that there's a fire. But again, if there is no foundation, it just goes everywhere. We need it to be controlled. We need to groom it. We need to make them know, like, hey, this is what we're going into. This is what you also should think about. Have you thought about doing something like this throughout there? But not imposing, but like advising. That's what we need right now, some advising.
Right. Now, you talked about history, and so one of the things that I'm always trying to make sure that everyone understands across generationally is that historically, remember, the older people that and these aren't people my age, because our generation kind of got skipped, but the generation before us, remember, they are the older generation that were the teenagers that left the school back in the early 60s. So everybody can agree that it is the muscle and the energy of the younger generations that starts the movement. King himself, if you go back and you read read up on the information, King, when he was in jail in Birmingham, it was a young person in his group that said, let's get these students out. King comes out of jail, and he's conflicted because he never wanted to see young people on the front lines. He never wanted to see young people in jail. He did not want to see them hosed. He did not want to see those dogs turn on those young people. So King was conflicted, but everyone would argue that it took D-Day and double D-Day to reinvigorate the civil rights movement in the early 60s. So it took those young people coming, getting up and standing up and marching and coming out of school and singing. They said that those kids, they not only did they fill up the jail, they filled up the jail so tough that they had to start housing the students at the fairgrounds. There was so many of them, right? They said the conditions was deplorable for those students. And even in the midst of those conditions, you still heard those young people back in the early 60s singing "We Shall Overcome." They were still singing "We Shall Overcome," even though they had been put in those situations. And those were the same young people that we're seeing marching today. It's just a different generation.
Yep.
This is a different generation. And so again, as you point out, history, learn and understand your history. Those older people have no right to be self-righteously indignant, because they were the same young people in the early 60s that did what the young people are doing today. The same young people doing it. Now, the tactics may be different. The language may be different. The dress may be different. The music back then, Father, Father, there's too many of you dying, right? Mother, 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 same kind of, we gonna be all right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
it's the same conversation. So, so I'm also gonna say from the older perspective that we really do need more younger people to take this whatever's on their shoulder and sort of kick it off and say, bring it down.
Yeah.
Bring it down. Go ahead.
There's a great deal of humility that has to be orchestrated within this movement that we have going on, because again, it takes a village. But again, even with that, it can't be a village of young people. I mean, we need some guidance. And I think that's what the older generation is able to provide with a lot of different things that are going on with their experience that we see. So I always preach to people, stay humble and stay hungry, because that's what's going to allow you to get the opportunities to be in this setting, to tear down some type of system or really attack some type of law by engaging with people who have been through this, that have done the work for 35 plus years. Like, they have the experience.
Yeah.
Like, you can give me a snapshot and I can go ahead and keep that movement. Like, it's so we don't waste too much time. Mm-hmm. Like, you have a resource there, use it. That's what it's there for.
Yeah. And I say it like this all the time. I say sometimes it can take 30 minutes for somebody, just give somebody 30 minutes and they can prevent you 30 years of misguided pain and suffering. Yep. Just give them 30 minutes, somebody 15 minutes. They get 15 minutes can save you 15 years. You know what I mean? So I agree with you, man. We got to come off, bro. I appreciate you. I'm gonna give you some Indianapolis love for all the way from Indianapolis. As you know, we're going to be running in and out of Bloomington quite a bit coming up the next 4 years or whatever. And so anything that we can do to support the work that you're doing, we want to do it. So keep us abreast. Come back. Be the first to come on 3 times. All right.
It'll be something new, I assure you.
I'm telling you, ain't it? Good job at Holiday Park with the Juneteenth piece. We saw a little bit of that, and also good job with Starfish. Obviously, we were involved in that project with Starfish, trying to make sure that young people have a forum to talk about what we do beyond the violence. So good job on that. I'm gonna give you a hand clap on that. But yeah, so we got to go, y'all. Again, we want to thank y'all for joining Community Conversations. This has been Kai Freeman. This is his second time on Community Conversations. So much has happened since then. He's stepped up his game. He's now the president of the Black Student Union there at Indiana University. I want y'all to follow him on social media, keep up with him. But more than anything, if you're watching this, please share this conversation with somebody else. I think there was some value in what he talked about, even re-engineering the organization to try to get it to, to have the capacity to sustain the work beyond just being a social organization, but also being a sort of a political action and advocacy organization. A lot of good information that he has shared. So I want y'all to share this with somebody else. Now, remember, if you have not registered or pre-registered for the Urban Servant Leadership Unconference, I want you to go out to uniteforchange.org. Go ahead and submit your pre-registration. It will be national this year on August the 15th. It's virtual. So that means we're bringing voices in from Memphis. Some of y'all saw Theron Bond. She, man down there in Memphis, Tennessee, spoke truth to power. The governor came into Memphis, went to a black church on Juneteenth, and I mean, Theron went in. She went in on the governor. He didn't even acknowledge her. She let him know that she was concerned about the citizens of Tennessee. And so we need more advocates like that. So we're going to get Theron Bond on again. We'll have her in the conversation during the Urban Servant Leadership Unconference. So register right now for that. Go there. Also, go to uniteforchange.org and click that link on our gaps and overlaps page. On that page, you will see a list of all the agenda items, all the demands from various organizations throughout the state of Indiana who have demands and who have agenda items that they want to see change within our state, within our city, and within our country. We want you to go there and check out the gaps and overlaps page. Brother Kai, thank you, man.
No problem, Pastor Gary.
Thank you, sir. All right, we're going to see y'all. Y'all make sure y'all share this. We're on Periscope. Share it on Periscope. We're on YouTube. Share it on YouTube. We're on Facebook at uniteforchange.org. We're on Pastor G's page. Share this, and let's do community conversation again, because we ain't going to move nothing. We ain't going to move nothing unless we talk about it. So let's continue to talk and have the conversation. Peace, y'all. I'm gone. Take care. Later.